everything you do has an opportunity window. If you're doing e-com, if you're doing agency, if you're doing consulting, if you're doing services, you don't have an infinite amount of time in the vehicle that you're in.
One thing that I would also like to talk about now, and never shared it on the channel because it's a German case. They are doing $1 billion in e-commerce revenue. What would you say is like the main thing that changed over the last year and going into 2025? Like what should be the strategy for e-commerce brands at that like multiple seven-figure revenue level that they should apply to grow sustainably, grow fast?
I think especially if you contrast it to like 2.5 years ago, times definitely have changed, but they always change. But you have to adapt to the certain conditions that are on the market to make them work in your favor. If we talk about acquisition, the acquisition side of things, for sure everything got more expensive. Of course, every time you're mentioning ads are getting more expensive, CPMs are getting more expensive, it's always right, and it's always more expensive in the future. So your strategies still have to adapt to changing prices. And even if you're profitable right now with the offers you're running, with the bundles you're running, or like the backsell stuff that you're doing, you still have to have a lot of margin for increased costs in the future. And the best way for that, still, to be honest, is like crafting really, really good front-end offers. I mean, if I think about the case we did on the Kinobody side, for example, this for me is like a textbook example, because 3, 4, 5 years ago, you could just advertise a single supplement. And when we linked up working on that case, I think the first thing we spoke about in the first 2 minutes after taking the collaboration was how to build the bundle.
Yeah. So just to kind of get into that, because code-friendly offers like a big thing that you advertise in the German market, and I've taken some of that into the international market, and it's like for a lot of the cases we have together, we create a code-friendly offer. What is your definition of that, and like what are the main aspects that people watching have to keep in mind of like how to build something like that for their brand or the product that they're selling?
Yeah, so code-friendly offers had in the past have really been mistreated in some way, because it's not just about making a bundle with a lot of products in it and selling it for an expensive price. That worked a couple of years ago, just advertising like higher quantities of products at the same time, like not selling a single skincare, but selling like 3 products in a bundle. The sophistication in the market really increased for that. So you first of all have to hone down on what are you actually trying to solve. Like if you take the Kinobody example, you're trying to solve like a bigger picture. You're not solving a zinc deficiency. You're solving like a big problem, like you want more muscles, you want to get more attractive, you want to increase your testosterone, and everything that comes with that. So code-friendly offer right now have to be based on a big overarching desire, and then the products have to support that. And if you are like an honest marketer, you should be really pushing for code-friendly offers, because you want to make claims that are believable, and you can't just deliver like a big claim, like rarely with a single product. You oftentimes have to combine multiple products and a guide and like a community or something in order to actually deliver the bigger results. So I would say code-friendly offer, it's definitely not just quantity anymore, and it's based on utility, like what the consumer actually can do with that.
Yeah. And there's one thing that you just mentioned, which is capturing desire. And if we go back to what Eugene Schwartz wrote in Breakthrough Advertising, right? You cannot create desire in people. It's more about like capturing what they already have, right? Yeah. So there's like specific desires that's in every single human being that have like different expressions, right? But if we keep it down to the core, it's always like this fear of dying and wanting to reciprocate. Maybe you want to give a quick example of how we use that for Kinobody like this, especially the desire of wanting to mate, right? Like how are you able to connect the product or the offer to such a deep desire that basically drives all human actions, and like why is that so powerful for the marketing or for creating such an offer?
Yeah, I think it's a great example to really get it down, because first of all, who on earth wants to increase their testosterone, and why do they want to do that? I mean, they want to do that because they want to have a better success rate with the other sex. They want to mate with other people, and they think in order to achieve that results in a more likely way, they have to look better, they have to have more charisma, and they just need to be like a better man. by itself. And if you just want to sell like a product as a testosterone booster or something like that, a lot of products like that are getting sold right now. And you really can't differentiate just by the ingredients of the product alone, because at some point in the market cycle, everything just gets commoditized and everyone is using the same ingredients. So what we did there in conjunction was that we not also, that we had the testosterone booster, we had a vasodilator for better pumps and looking more ripped and having more sexual stamina. And then we had the Mojo Mastery Challenge, which was like a whole lifestyle-based community around utilizing the products, hitting the gym together, and keeping each other accountable. So the bigger overarching promise in getting more girls, looking more jacked, and having like a better mating probability was achieved by the combination of the products. And that for me is like a textbook cold-friendly offer.
Yeah, good one. One other case that I want to speak about, which, I mean, this is probably like a really interesting one that we've just started working on together, right when they launched the market, which is the new product from David Beckham, right?
Yeah.
IM8 Have. Super
One of my favorite projects right now.
Yeah, it was super cool because so shout out to David and also his co-founder Danny, right? It's like two amazing people. I mean, obviously David is more on like the influencer side, and then Danny with his company Prenetics and like his great background and all of that stuff with the supplementation and like the whole formulas of the supplement and all of the genetic and DNA research that they did to come up with like a great product formula. It was really cool to see that they basically just right from the get-go wanted to work with like an A-star team. So they reached out to us, right, to get like a sick funnel, to get help with the creative, direct response and everything. So walk us through that from your perspective, and then I'm going to add some to that in terms of how can you make sure also for a new brand, new product entering the market, like what are the most important steps? Like what is the timeline? What is the blueprint? Take us like through the approach step by step of like what they have to solve in order to scale to like $1 million a month, couple million a month, and all of that.
Especially with IM8, you have the challenge of not only relying on the celebrity phase, but actually establishing the product in a very mainstream way because you want to push a lot of volume. If I think about how to establish that brand, I mean, they pretty much had a shortcut to product market fit because David Beckham is doing an Instagram story and everyone is buying it. If you don't have the celebrity advantage there, you either have to have a superior product in regards to the competition that you actually can validate. So you can actually, side by side, even if it's just in your mind, give yourself the permission to actually push in the market. So you either have to have a superior product, superior margins, so you can spend more than the competition, or a superior channel that you're advertising on. If you're lagging any of those, it's infinitely harder to actually establish in a Shark Tank of a lot of brands out there. Getting a superior product, I think in that way is one of the best ways to start, because why should someone buy a second best product or a third best product? So you have to have a great product, which IM8 definitely is having, even if you have like the side-by-side comparisons from the ingredients. Then you have to have superior margins. I, of course, can't share anything about that publicly, but let's just assume that they have great margins. And then you have to have a superior acquisition channel. Because if you're selling a better product with better margins than anyone else, or you have a better product with competitive margins, then you are basically on the same playing field like the ones who are capturing the most of the market share. So you either have to play the game that everyone else is playing better by using the channel better that they're advertising on, or you have to open up a completely new channel that no one is advertising on. If you think about IM8, I mean, they're already pushing spend on Meta. In our opinion, we had a lot of room for improvements regarding the creative system and increasing the hit rate of winning creatives. And by doing that, we want to move faster than the competition and deliver better iterations. That is like our plan to actually crush there. And if we wouldn't have that, we would have thought, what is like the acquisition funnel that we want to run? Do we want to run straight to product page? Do we want to run advertorial? Do we want to run comparison page? And then find a channel that is underutilized by the competitors like native ads or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm happy we can do both at the same time because the capacity is there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's also a good one. So one thing for that case, I mean, they are so focused on fast, efficient growth, which is great, right? Like, I mean, they have the network for it, they have the amazing product for it, they have the backing and the capital for it. So it's really great to just like execute it on like such high velocity and like such short time frames. And one thing that you mentioned, which I think also a lot of brands just do like step by step by step, really slowly. We are executing all of that together. So if you think about the funnel, and again, this is just stuff that you can find online, right? Because we obviously cannot share too much in terms of KPIs, but that's just stuff that you can find online. So if you reverse engineer like all of the funnels, all of the ads, what we did right from the get-go is basically play out creatives to like every single awareness stage of the target audience and like every single sophistication stage, right? Most of the brands start just capturing the demand from the bottom of funnel traffic that's already super warm. And then just over time to like scale further, they go to more cold and less aware audiences. So typically they just go bottom of funnel to like product page. And then maybe they go to middle of funnel, send that to a collection page or landing page or something, then product page. And then someday they go to top of funnel, really cold audience, longer funnel, maybe to like an advertorial, VSL page, something like that, then to a sales page, right? So basically, if you look at the funnel, we initiated all of that in the first month.
Yeah.
So imagine the setup of like a mid 8-figure brand that's doing 50 million a year, we just do with this brand right from the get-go, right? Which obviously enables a lot of scale because we did this for Meta, and then we also directly went to Google in native ads just to basically use the complete potential of all of the channels with all of the different funnels, right? So I would just advise you to go to all of the ad libraries and go through the funnel steps, and then you're going to see there's traffic, warm traffic that's being pushed to the product page. There's a bit colder traffic being pushed to the home page. There's a lot of different advertorials, a lot of different listicles, right? Even VSL pages. So there's just so much like energy and thought flowing into setting up a multitude of funnels, because oftentimes, I mean, also with other projects that we have together, there's always with brands like certain funnels and certain customer journeys that just hit a certain scale limit, right? And then it's not about like new creatives or new whatever for that. It's like duplicating the same funnel for another angle, the same funnel for another hero product, or just adding more funnels, right? For like more awareness stages. So I think that also just from like the theory, maybe you can also add some of your thought to that, but just from like the theory view of that, I think has just been executed really well from like our teams, and obviously like their team all coming together to be able to hit the numbers that they're doing in this quick time frame. I mean, they launched in what, like November last year, and now 2-3 months later, it's already a huge company.
It's insane.
And it's going to do crazy numbers in like a crazy short time period. So that's basically, I think also a lot of people watching, they have certain limiting beliefs of what time frame it takes to get to a certain revenue, a certain level. So yeah, maybe you can just add something.
For sure. So I think the biggest takeaway from that definitely is the speed to results that we're delivering there, because as you mentioned, you can take up to a whole year to get like one funnel working. Or you can have the system in place to replicate it for multiple stages of the awareness funnel. And the biggest projects, if I just retrospectively think about the last year, they had a pretty quick, fast mover advantage, if you want to call it that way. And just because it's a high level activity, like building a great advertorial or something like that, I mean, it could take up to 3 months for it to get working, but it doesn't have to take that long. So if you have the process in place to spin up the pages, to spin up the copywriting, to get the awareness stages down, how to produce the creatives, how to produce the iterations, how to get the VSL in place, you can pump that out in like 3 weeks. And the best clients that I think about have the speed advantage. And I mean, that's the reason why always when we have like a brand doing 8 figures, the first thing I do is calling you and asking you if you have capacity. It's because I just know that the speed to result has a acceleration aspect that you can't get by utilizing like different freelancers or something like that. And if you think about the next 2 to 3 years for the brand, if you get like 8 times the amount of testing done, I mean, you definitely maybe won't be 8 times as big, but definitely 4x since you're just moving that much faster and finding more stuff that is working. Walk us through one thing that I'm pretty interested about. 2.5 years ago, when you talked about how you're working with brands, how your team is structured, what I saw from the inside is that your delivery times went like way faster. Not that they have been bad or something like that, but it's just like from working with you in the past, I had the thought that a couple of things just take X amount of weeks. And every time we onboard new clients, you're like even faster now. Did you change anything on your operations side there, or like fewer clients, bigger clients? Like what happened there?
Yeah. So I would say two things happened. I mean, one of the main thing, obviously, over the past 2 years for us has been the speed, because like the quicker you can push campaigns live and the quicker you can run tests, the quicker you can iterate and move the needle, obviously. So like one thing that we've just over obsessed with is trying to dial down like the SOPs and like the time frames needed. And basically, the best thing we did is just like over obsessed with the whole project management and the whole flow of the team. So basically broke it down to a T in terms of like every single step that happens like after onboarding a new brand. And 2.5 years ago, I think that took around like 4 to 5 weeks to push the initial campaigns live, and now it takes around like 1.5 to 2 weeks. So around like half of it, and like this 2 to 3 week difference is obviously crazy big, because you have so much more time pushing like new stuff live. I would say it all comes down to like project management and also thinking about, okay, well, what's the first step? The first step is setting up the data tracking tools. The second step is going through all of the data, collecting feedback, exporting reviews, talking to customer support, right? So there's like a whole chain of stuff that has to happen before you can come up with the hypotheses and the ideas and the roadmap. And then you have to give it to the designer and copywriter to execute on it. Then you have to give it to the developer to program it, right? Like there's so much stuff happening. And basically what we did is we're now doing a lot of stuff like simultaneously, and basically the whole team exactly knows like what to do when. And I think that just brought a lot of speed into that. And then the second aspect is obviously we cut it down in terms of the maximum amount of accounts that we're managing at any given moment. So we kept that at 25, right? Because then we know with a team of 41 people and 25 accounts, we just know that we even have like a certain buffer, right? Meaning we are always a bit under capacity and never like over capacity, just so we have room to just pay a lot of attention to every single account and brand that we manage, and just also give it a lot of speed from the team. Because we've had it in the past, like a year ago, where we scaled to like 30 or maybe even 35 accounts, but then we saw, okay, we're a little bit over capacity, it's a little bit stressing the team. And obviously being like 100% done for you service where you do everything for the client, that cannot be the case, right?
Yeah.
So that was super important, and that was a big thing for us to kind of cap it. And then also, I mean, now as the founders, like we are able to manage the accounts, we're able to like manage the strategy. If it's too many accounts, then obviously like you're not going to find the time to do that. So that's a cool thing. And I would also say that a lot of the projects that we have been working on that you can find on case studies on like our YouTube channels, like one part of that was always that you and I were involved in the strategy.
For sure.
And creating the code-friendly offer for Kinobody. Or maybe like one thing that I would also like to talk about now, because I never shared it on the channel because it's a German case. If we think about MoreNutrition and ESN, right, which is nobody knows this outside of Germany, but you can type it into Google. They are doing $1 billion in e-commerce revenue per year.
Level of scale is just insane.
Which is unheard of just in the German market. So Germany, Austria, Switzerland. They're now obviously expanding into the Netherlands, into France, into a lot of other markets, probably also into Dubai, US and stuff. And now they're just doing $1 billion in Germany. So I want to talk about that project a bit, because I think they have like 1,100 employees or something. Also crazy number, right? But then the founder basically reached out to us again, like as like a project, even though that we are two different companies, like they reached us together to like in combined forces come onto it and bring speed into everything, bring speed into the creative strategy, into the media buying, into the channel diversification, into the whole funnel setup, into the influencer marketing, right? So maybe you can just shed some light on that, like what that was like for you also to be hired by like $1 billion company, and they even have like hundreds of people working on marketing and website and stuff, and then they're just like, hey, can you guys help us maybe?
I mean, it was like an insane project, to be honest. I can't even say more words about that, because it was just like an insane amount of revenue and traffic that they were pushing. And when we talked about it at first, you were like, okay, this is like one of the biggest amounts of traffic I ever saw. We can run like 3 times the amount of tests based on that traffic, and it's validated in 2 hours, like stuff like that. And the same was on the media buying side. I mean, they were working with like insane amounts of influencers and with insane amounts of repeated buyers. So to get like hired to get the cold, predominantly audience involved into buying or like discovering the brand was a challenge for sure, because you're working alongside of a lot of people that are working on that brand for years, and you have to find like the rhythm and working together on that. What I think was like one of the biggest wins there was that we could really fast, like we could tell really fast what was missing from the accounts. Because if you're just running based on repeated buyers and influencer traffic, you're not really converting ice cold traffic. And that's what definitely was like the biggest lever to pull. So we really had to step like a step back and think about, why are people actually buying the products in the first place? Not because of the favorite influencer buying it or like because it tastes great, but like what kind of pain are they trying to solve doing the first purchase there, which was we really hit the nail on the head there, and the creatives look great there. But there was a pretty big challenge to actually neglect the thousands of buyers a day and focus on who's not buying from the market, which was pretty interesting. And then I think the biggest lever was to actually establish like a high volume creative iteration system. Because if you're pushing stuff with influencers, everything is converting.
Yeah.
And you just get like the false positives of this is a great creative. And we actually had to find out and iterate what is working. And I was very happy with the amount of volume. I think during the Black Week, it was like 80 creatives in 2 days or something like that. That was like a huge win from the acquisition side.
Yeah. And what I also think, and shout out to Christian Wolf, like the founder.
He's a G.
Yeah, he's
like
a G. I mean, it just speaks to him that even at that level, they're still trying to push the needle, and they have the awareness that where we're doing $1 billion, which is mostly due to our influencer warm traffic, but there's so much more in the market that we can capture with like colder and less aware audiences, and that's what they mainly brought us into to solve and open up for them, which we did, which was super cool, but which also just shows that these huge companies like 9-figure brands, maybe even $1 billion brands, also like AG1 or Huel or whatever, like they never stop, right? They're always hungry to find that next lever, to find that next strategy or competitive edge, right? To open up even more uncontested market space and capture more money, which is really cool.
Yeah, and I think from the mindset side, it was great to see that even after doing like a big exit to private equity, you're still like in the mindset of, I want to be like a $10 billion company. I want to do an IPO. I want to take over the world. Yeah. Like not getting comfortable and trying to push as hard as possible is something any founder can reflect on, because where is the ceiling? I think when they started the company, they were not thinking about doing $1 billion in revenue every year. But like there they are now. And now they're looking for ways to improve that. I think there's a lesson in that.
Yeah. I think that's also a pretty good way to end the podcast. I mean, there was a lot of golden nuggets. But let me just, to kind of round it up, what would you give to the audience? I mean, you just ended with like never get comfortable, always stay hungry. Like what is like one main thing that has been driving you? Like what is one mindset advice that you can give to the audience?
Good question, especially if you are not prepared for the question. I would say one of the most important common themes that I'm really taking into account right now is that everything you do has an opportunity window. If you're doing e-com, if you're doing agency, if you're doing consulting, if you're doing services, you don't have an infinite amount of time in the vehicle that you're in. So even if you're building for the future, if you're building on becoming like a brand dynasty or something like that, you still have to judge the timelines that you're in based on the opportunities that you're having. So if you actually have the chance right now to push hard, you should actually push hard, because you never know what happens in the future. And it kind of sounds like a pessimistic approach, but it's like one of the most optimistic approaches that I take on, because if I'm being careful about time is finite and the finite, and the amount of impact I can create is uncapped. I owe myself to provide the most amount of impact in the shortest time possible, because you just don't know what is happening after that.
Yeah.
I mean, even if times are changing, maybe Facebook shuts down, who knows? Like stuff like that. Maybe TikTok is gone or something like that. You have to adapt, but you can't just say, okay, I'm playing it safe because everything's changing. The conclusion has to be exactly on the other side. You have to push hard because everything will be changing for sure. So the only constant that you can count on is if you're maximizing the opportunity window you're in. So I think this is like the most important mindset shift that I had over the years.
I like it. So push the throttle hard, and especially when times are good.
Yes.
Never get comfortable.
For sure. And if times are tough, you can rely on the momentum that you built. And I saw a lot of agencies dying over the last 2 years, but not us. Like we had the best year after the best year with like no room for error. And it was because we just had the momentum of pushing for years. And then even better times, like, or the worst times are like not that bad after all, because you can rely on momentum that anyone else is lacking.
Yeah, nice one, bro.
Appreciate that.